let's get started. What we have here is a sheet of watercolour paper. Now I've done a sketch of a brown hare looking very startled, but they've got really gorgeous big eyes, these hares. So we've got this sketch here. Now if you want to sketch this yourself, feel free to take a screenshot, a screen grab at any point of this. You can do a screen grab. If you've got an iPhone, you can press the kind of top volume button and the lock button and it'll capture the screen. If you've got a laptop, there's various ways to do it as well. You can find information how to do a screen grab online, but that's the sketch. It's on a 1/4 imperial, 1/4 imperial sheet of watercolour paper, which is the size 11 by 15 inch, not surface NOT, which is a middle grain surface and not surface. 300 gram, 100% cotton, beautiful Matthew Palmer watercolour paper. So looking forward to working on this. So that's the sketch. Let's take a look at what's happening over on the palette. We've got all the colours squirted in. Now I've got 14 colours in total. These are my own brand of colours. You can see, for example, this green here is called Matthew Palmer's Natural Green Light. Now these are colours that I've designed with the SAA to replicate nature. These are my own brand. They've been around about 15 years now. I'm not going to use all the colours. I don't know which colours I'm going to use until I start putting some paint to paper. I can't really say until I actually do it, because I'm literally doing this thing live. But you could, in theory, do this entire painting from primary colours. So blue, so natural blue here, natural red, and natural yellow light. And I'll talk about how we're going to mix the colours. Got the water here, kitchen paper, in case we start crying, because it is a bit emotional, this watercolour job. Brushes wise, the 3 standard brushes, what I'm going to use is these ones. Now again, look, I'm very lucky, I've got my own range of products. So here we've got Matthew Palmer's Super Point large, medium and small. Everything's available at watercolour.tv. These are basically a round size 20, a round size 10 and a round size 5 or 6. That's it. I've got something for detail should I need it a little bit later, but just grab a coffee, sit down, relax and enjoy watching paint dry, because that's pretty much what we're doing here. Again, the sketch is there, it's ready to go, that's all there, we've got it on, we're doing what we're doing. It's going to be a lovely one to work on. We'll start off by literally taking the big brush, the 20, we'll dunk it in the water there. Can't go wrong with this. We'll see. What we're going to do is start off by simply wetting the paper. Now I have got a very slight tilt on the board, I put the masking tape underneath there. So wetting the whole sheet of paper from literal top to bottom here. And I tend to do this a couple of times in watercolour. So it's going straight through. A couple of coats of water. Watercolour paper is designed to absorb the water. So once it's had a couple of coats, you can see it's all shiny. You'll see any dry patches. You want loads of wet patches, no dry patches. So check yourself for wet patches, especially at the bottom. Sounds a bit dodgy. That's where it kind of gathers. We should stop talking right now. We'll put that brush away. We'll put that brush away, and what we're going to do now is we're going to jump into the middle size, the size 10 or medium super point, and then we're going to paint in a lovely background. We're going to take a bit of blue, because you can't beat a bit of blue on a lunchtime, can you? We've got a bit of blue. We'll take some of that. Beautiful. You can smell the excitement. We're going to take the blue. Natural blue, this was the colour I'm using. This is just for the background on the tissue, a couple of times on the tissue, just to sort of mop away that excess. And literally we're going to go in with the brush flat to the paper and let the paint explode, let it become part of the background. So imagine it's a bit of a sky, literally twisting the colours in. We can work loosely around the hair and various things. The brown hair, this is what this is going to be. So we'll get that coming through there. So a lovely sort of wet into wet, beautiful soft background. Stay with us. We're going to work in. And then we're going to jump over and get some green in. Yes, we're going to use some natural green. Now, these greens are mixed from nature, designed to replicate nature. These aren't actual green pigments. These are replicated. So this is natural green light. You probably know you can mix yellow and blue to get green. That's pretty standard stuff, right? You know that. So I'm not going to go into that really, but you can do it yourself. Again, we'll twist it in. It's nice to have the tissue to remove the excess. Let the paint spread and become part of the background. Beautiful. Let it mix with the blue, so you're getting variations of tone. But that's a lovely little background. Let the paint spread. Let it become part of the background. Let it do its thing. Beautiful way of working. Now, it's also nice that I'm doing a animal inspired by Kim's book, because I've recently wrote a book myself. Would you believe it? Yes, I have. I wrote a book here called Watercolour Animals for the Absolute Beginner. Brand new book. Check it out. Links in the description below. This literally only dropped a couple of weeks ago. Beautiful. I mean, look at this. Just let's have a moment to absorb this. Look at this. You've got the giraffe there, all in step-by-step detail. 160 pages worth of watercolour. You've got the lovely polar bear. Where's polar bear? There's polar bear. Keith, apparently his name is. All step by step. Thoroughly enjoyed. You've got the panda there. Sea turtle. We all love a good sea turtle. Yeah, can't beat a good sea turtle. You've also got a leopard. Or is it a cheetah? It's a cheetah. We've got a parrot. What's orange and sounds like a parrot? It's carrot. Leaping dolphins. Got the sketches in there as well. So that is now available. Do check that out online if you want to pick up a copy. I'm doing an official launch next week for that one, so do check that out. Back to the palette. We're going to drop some colours on the actual hair now. On the actual hair. So what we're going to do here is we're going to be using variations of these natural colours. So here we've got a colour called Natural Yellow. It's a sandy colour, very similar to raw sienna, if anyone knows what raw sienna is. So we're going to use that, which will be quite nice, beautiful. Don't be afraid of the strong colours, will you? Can't go wrong with that. And then we're going to go for some natural brown. Again, you can mix brown from mixing a very deep orange from yellow and red and drop blue in it. We've got this colour, which is a slightly harder colour to mix. This one is part of the skin tone. There's two skin tones, light and dark here. I'm going to be using the darkest one. And again, we'll pop that in there. So those three colours and some of this colour. Now, this colour is quite important because this one is natural grey. And natural grey was the first colour I ever designed. And it's a colour that is all about shadows. Very important colour is natural grey. It's mixed from about 70% blue with about 10% red and about 40% yellow, and that will give you a cold shadow grey. There's no black paint in that, there's no black pigment in it, which is quite important. Still on the same tissue, times are odd, and still on the same brush, we're going to use these colours. We'll start with the yellow, quite heavy. I should say these colours are quite strong, by the way. And then we'll jump over to this here. Now we're a little bit closer in here, and we're going to go in. I'm going to drop some colours in. Yes, it's a brown here, but we're going to get a bit of light to start with. So I'll bring it in, beautiful. The transparency that you get inside those ears is stunning on these hairs. I love the fact that I'm working on cotton paper. This is a really prestige paper, this. We do have the paper online, so you can pick this up on the website, if there's any left in stock, that is. And I love the fact that the paint just stays wet for absolutely ages. It's beautiful stuff. Look how it's just a little bit of softness. That works really well for this. We're going to turn it over, tricky bit, and what we'll do then is we're going to come down this edge here. Stay with me, anticipation's half the fun. Bring it through, right down. So pretty much blocking it in, even the eye. We'll keep an eye on that, we'll do that later. What we'll do then is we'll work down. We'll let that just fade into the vignette, let it fade in. Jumping back to the palette, we're going to now go a little bit darker. We've got natural brown. That's not as strong. That colour is quite a strong colour, so just be a little bit aware of that one. Do wipe off the excess on tissue. Natural brown's good for doing your foliage and your branches and your twigs and things like that. It's quite a nice colour for that. So what we're going to do here, very, very simply, is we're going to try not to get this hand on the paper, but we're going to drop in some darkness. But I want it to mix on the paper. This is going to go right to the top of the ears. So you're going to find me rotating the board a little bit. So bear with me while I do this. The paper is still damp. Is it mere? Is it moist? It's just starting to dry. We'll get the brown at the top. We'll get more colours in here as well as we progress. This is just the initial wash of paint going in. Beautiful. It's like a scene from Watership Down. We'll bring it down. So those bright eyes. We'll come down here. And loosely, this is so important, this little tap on tissue, is the what's it said to the what's it. It really is. You bring it in, and you let your paint just become part of whatever's there, really. Turn it over again, And then we'll work down that edge. So it's surprising how much you can actually do at the point of the paper being damp. It's all to do with the quality of the paper, that's what I'll say. What I'll do here, clean the brush, squeeze out the excess through the kitchen paper and even through my fingers, and now I can soften in any hard bits and start to add a little bit of blending. So I'm getting the paint to move a little bit here. So all the paint is spreading in, it's all moving together. Doesn't matter that it's crept over the edge, that's all part of the fun. It's all part of what you want it to do, really. And now we're going to bring in some of that skin tone. This is the dark skin tone. This is these skin tones is light and dark. There's two available. This is the light one here. These are pretty opaque colours, so you can use them quite nicely. I don't want too much of this, but there's a little bit going to be inside the ears. A pinky haze inside the ears there. A little bit. It's got a slight sort of rusty nature to that colour. And just a few little bits around the mouth. Not too much around there, a little bit. Around the nose. Just a very subtle hint of this, even around the eye. Again, it's all done at the point of the paper being a little bit damp. It's just starting to dry. Clean the brush again, through the tissue, through the fingers, just off screen, through the fingers, and we'll just go in and give it a little bit of a soften. Lovely. Let's jump back over here. We're going to be a little bit more in control now, and we're going to start to put some darkness into this thing. So straight into natural grey, that's here. Again, you can mix your grey from blue, a big chunk of blue, natural blue, with a bit of red, about 10%, and then the rest yellow. That will give you grey. But it's nice to have the ready-made grey, because you use just loads of the stuff. You use stacks of it, because everything's got a shadow, from Mr. Palmer's double chin right through to the shadow inside the ears of a hare. Very important, really. So for this, I want to be careful not to get too much on the actual paper, because it's still damp. Your paper's going to go a bit swollen. That's perfectly normal for watercolours. It'll flatten. You can stretch paper, but life's too short for that. We're going to come in inside the ear there and get a few shadows. See, I love working wet into wet, which is exactly what we're doing here. The books I've wrote with Search Press go into detail. I've done, what, nine books, I believe? 8, 9 books now. So do have a look on Search Press's website for all the books I've done over the years. I'm going to work down here. These are all going to get softened in, so do stay with me. We're going to go a little bit across the top of the head. I'm using the point. You can see it. You can see why this is called a super point. It's basically a size 10 brush. Okay, it's the same brush I've used throughout. We're going to go up there a little bit. I'm just going to slightly turn it around that way because I want the ears to be separate. The shadow comes down the edge. We're going to blend all this in. I'm working at demo speed here, which is me working, you know, pretty quickly. But if you're watching this back and you're having a go yourself, pause it, you know, do as you would do normally. Don't think you've got to work at this pace because you haven't. This is because I'm conscious people are watching, and sometimes people get a bit bored, don't they, watching paint dry. Do you know what I mean? Are you with me? Okay, so now let's keep going with these shadows. We're going to blend all this in. A little bit around the mouth, slightly under the nose. Softness will come in a minute. Around the back of the head, under here. Around the back of there. Under here. So basically adding as many shadows as we can. I do want to go a little bit dark under there as well, not too much. Perfect. And then this is a lovely way of working. Looking like we're putting war paint on. It's like a scene from Braveheart, this look. It'll grow on you. Let's turn it on the side and then we'll go down here. Turn the profile. And A little bit of shadow just sneaking down the side of the nose, down the side of the mouth there. And then we're at a stage now, probably one of my favourite bits of doing this is to take this brush, dunk it in the old water, give it a good old wipe through the kitchen paper, and then a good old squeeze. So you've got this lovely soft brush, and you can now go and attack this grey paint. We'll start off in the ears, of course, and literally just using water. Keep refreshing the brush. Now, if you do want to work a little bit more steady with me, I do teach weekly, pretty much weekly, give or take the odd week, virtual watercolour workshops. I've been doing these for about 4.5 years now, and we've got one actually coming up this Saturday, so Saturday the 15th of June if you're watching this live on the 13th of June 2024. And this is actually taking place. In fact, I can show you some information about it. We've got a little bit of an ad here, look. So this is a charity workshop, so do please support this one. It's £12 for the workshop, and it's a step-by-step workshop, and it's all about supporting the Royal British Legion. We're going to paint a stunning seascape with the famous White Cliffs of Dover, Golden Beach, crashing waves and lighthouse. This is taking place Saturday the 15th, and it's commemorating the D-Day 80th anniversary. Funds from this will be donated to the British Legion, so do please support this. I've popped links in the description should you want to book onto it. We've got limited spaces available. It's virtual, so basically what that means is that you are sort of sat at home in your pyjamas watching me teach you to paint. It's like having private tuition. The thing is that you don't actually see, or should I say, I don't see you, but you see me. So do check that out. And once you've booked it, it's yours to keep forever. So do have a look at it. Do support this. It's a great cause. And all you need is the very basic primary colours, nothing else, just the primary colours. Back to what we're doing here then. So, water through the tissue. Again, continuing to blend all these shadows in. Turn the board on the side. It's all about softening and blending at this point. Watercolour is great. You could even come back to this in a couple of hours, and potentially, if the paint was still, you know, still not too thin, you could actually still continue to blend this in quite happily. It would work quite well. So you can see here that I'm just kind of whizzing around, softening in, blending it all in. It's giving texture as well as anything else. It's giving shape, it's giving form, but the paper is still that little bit damp there, which is really quite nice. So I keep popping the brush in the water. I keep softening it in and giving it a bit of a blend. That's the secret. That's the secret to all watercolour. Blending the paint away. Take a moment, look back at the picture and start to pick out some edges. We'll put a little edge down there. We're going to start to put the detail in very soon. We'll come down here with a bit of dark. I'm literally picking the grey up now, and I know that the paper is almost damp. Again, notice every single time before I touch the paper with a brush, I'm using this piece of kitchen paper to give it a bit of a wipe on there, just to remove that excess. That does a few things. It gives you more control, but more importantly, it actually gives you a slight texture. There's a lovely bit of darkness under that eye there. I'm looking forward to getting that eye in. And we'll come down here, and then we're going to go over the top of the head, from the base of that ear. And then we'll go a little bit shadowy down there. So more of the same really. A little bit up that edge there as well, just to pick out some important shapes here. Again, we'll clean the brush really well. I think it's time to move on to a clean piece of paper towel, kitchen paper, on the tissue there. And we'll soften those in again. Literally just water, as mentioned before. Blend it all in. Now, if I'm honest, before I do anything else, this wants a time to dry. So I've got if I zoom back a little bit, we are live, remember. We have got a heat gun here. It's called, wait for it. I've been waiting for this moment. This is called a hair dryer. I'll say that again. This is called a hair dryer. A hair dryer. Thank you Connect Fibre for sponsoring the channel, and if you really want to help this channel, make sure you check out the link below to get £60 credit against full fibre super fast broadband. Is your broadband smart enough? Well, thanks to Connect Fibre, mine is. With so many devices connected to the internet, you'll need a broadband provider that can handle it. Connect Fibre's full fibre broadband has the speed and reliability to keep everything from TVs and tablets to security cameras and doorbells seamlessly working in sync. You'll get astonishing speeds of up to 1000 megabits per second, all at an affordable price, ensuring seamless streaming and ultra-fast upload and download speeds. Visit connectfibre.co.uk and see why their full fibre broadband is the smart choice. And a big thank you to Connect Fibre for sponsoring this channel, and don't forget to check out the link below to get your £60 credit against your account. There we go, nice and dry. Okay, so now we're going to be using a smaller brush. We're going to be using the size 6 brush at this point, and it's time to get a little bit more into the detail side of things. So what we're going to do here is use this size 6 brush, and this is, for me personally, this is where this thing comes alive. We're going to use natural grey quite strong here. Don't be afraid of the strength of colour. Again, you can mix your grey, just use more paint, less water. So we've got a lovely strong grey here. I'm using a size 6 brush, or a small super point, as this particular one is called, and a very vibrant grey paint as well. Very strong, very definite grey. And we're going to start to be a little bit more detailed here. We'll get a bit closer into this. We're going to start to work around the mouth area. Get those lovely bits of facial details in the eyes, the nose, the mouth, that kind of thing, which is really where these things kind of come together, if I'm completely honest with you. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go in and we're going to get some shadows inside the nose. We'll turn this on the side here so you can see what we're doing. Hold the brush like a pen. Complete line that goes all the way, almost like a V shape. We'll block it in a little bit. Like that. There's a very thin line that comes down the centre here as well. Almost a little dotted line that comes down the centre. And that creeps into the mouth a little bit. Clean the brush really well. Wipe it almost dry. So you've just got a damp brush, and that allows you just to slightly feather the edge a little bit. A bit of a tickle on the edge. Just to give it a bit of a soften. Beautiful, that. Make sure you fade those ends away. Probably end up going a bit darker later on with that. But like I say, it's all to do with how strong you do your actual paint. So nice and strong for the grey. What we'll also do is we'll work around the outside of the eye. Now these, if you've ever seen a hare, the eyes are huge, aren't they? They're very powerful. Almost like staring, aren't they? Sort of stare at you. Brown hares are fairly common, I think, in the UK, aren't they? That goes off to a lovely point. Slightly higher at the top. And there's a little hint, you can just, it's literally right on the edge, there's a little hint of the eye just kind of creeping in, so I just want to darken the edge of the fur a little bit there. Again, we'll soften these in a second. We'll clean the brush really well at this point. Again, on the tissue, pretty dry, just ever so gently sort of tickle the back edge of this. Just give it a bit of a soften on the edge like that. And then just give it a bit of a feather, bit of a soften. We can smooth the shaping of this thing as much as we want to. We're going to put some colour inside there. We're not quite at that stage yet, so do stick with us. Anticipation is half the fun, as they say. Come back a little bit with the camera here. We're really dark on the edge. And the ear. nice and dark inside the ear as well. So actually putting that same grey I've just used, but going really dark inside the ear there. Almost flicking the brush out. You're sort of making use of the grain of the paper at this point, flicking the brush away. Perfect. And then we'll do the same on this side as well. So lovely dark, really quite strong inside there. Because that's going to give you the shadow as well as a bit of depth, you see. So it's going to help to give some character. Again, nice and dark on the edge, the top edge of the ear there, coming down. Beautiful. And then we just want to be a little bit darker down this edge, just a touch, just so there's a bit of shape down there. I'm really starting to utilise the grain of the paper here with this grey, what we're using. But yeah, the darker the better when it comes to this kind of shadow. There's some lovely dark detail in the inside the fur as well. So for this, I want to be a little bit more sort of dry brush. I'm going to be a little bit more dry brush for this. So what we're going to do here is get some markings on. So slightly heavier with the grey on the tissue. So you've got that paint, but very little. You can even make the brush go a little bit flat at this point. So you've got a slightly flat brush compared to what we've just had before. And for this, we're going to go in and put the lovely markings on. So on the underneath of the eye, we're going to go nice and dry brush under there. And then down here. And there's a nice bit of shadow that comes around here as well. There's some dry brush. You see I'm making the brush go a bit flat, coming out from the mouth. Even going back into the nose a little bit. So I'm actually painting in texture. For the first time, we're trying to do texture here. And I'm trying to make as much use as I can out of the grain. This is a knot grain, not surface, which basically means a middle texture. We're going to pick the paint up on the tissue. You can hopefully see how the brush is giving beautiful, beautiful texture, really. Down the edge of there. Don't be afraid of getting dark inside those ears. Beautiful, that. Got a few little creases in the fur, little folds in the fur. Again, that can be identified with as much detail as you want or as little detail as you want, but for me personally, just a little bit of dry brush and it'll do the job. You can add as much loose texture as you want to the fur. Got some lovely whiskers to go in later on, we'll get to those. Nice and dark under the chin. Nice bit of shadow coming down here. Let's come back with the camera a little bit so you can see a bit more how this thing's shaping up. Right down here. And then we'll work on the eye. Perfect. A few little markings in the ears. Little diagonal flicks, and you even see a few, actually see a few of the veins in the ears as well. Almost like a translucent effect, like little sort of tree branches. Which is quite nice. All the time following that lovely texture. Let's add a bit more texture before we move on to getting some of the eye and some of the final details in. Let's just go a little bit darker inside the nose there. Slightly darker in the mouth as well. Right, let's have a look what we've got in your palette. So we're going to be using some of this natural brown mixed with some of the yellow. So just kind of use what you've got. Nice sort of warm brown there. Lovely dry brush, lovely bit of open spiky texture from your brush there. That's really good for doing some nice texture that you can skim around the actual hair. Pretty much any blank patch, you can add a bit of this dry brush to it. Work on the edge. Make this thing look nice and some long hairs coming out. Bring it in. More texture the better, in my opinion, here. That works quite nice. Wants to be a little bit darker underneath there, so I want to use more grey, but not as strong as the grey I used before. So a little bit more of a diluted grey. So lift it and just dilute it out, because I want to be a little bit darker under here, under the neck, if you like, so we can add a bit of a shadow to that side. So you get that clear, definite darkness, more focused towards the left, you see. You get a nice clean brush on the tissue and then just water it down. A little bit of a soften. And also just pull a couple of little shadows coming down here as well. And let's get close into that eye. Let's get some colour in the eye. You want a yellowy green tinge in the eye. So what we'll do there is we'll use some natural green. That was the colour that we used in the background. Okay, we've got that. Not too strong for that. Nice and pale. Nice and watery. And we'll start off by simply blocking it in with a wash of this very transparent green, very weak. While that's damp, pick up some of the strong grey that he was using for the detail. And what you do is you drop in a little bit of grey into that, especially across the top. That'll give a bit of shadow and a bit more detail. We'll get in the central pupil in a second or two. While that's having a moment just to dry off, I'm going to use either this brush here, which is a super point brush, or something finer. You might want to be using like this is a Matthew Palmer branching detail brush, which is really, really fine. You can see that sort of lovely shape you get to the brush. So if you use some of that with a strong natural grey, very strong natural grey, just a bit of a wipe on the tissue there, you can see that lovely pointy brush. That's going to be really nice for adding some little, almost kind of silhouetted little bits of whiskers against the background. So just a few little flicks of tall hair coming out, and we'll get some whiskers coming out from this side. We'll do them in dark. You're trying to get your paint to flick away if you can. That's the secret to this. See that little fade away I'm doing at the end there? That's really what we're trying to capture with this. Now these whiskers are going to go right round. They come right down. And of course you also get some on this side. We can support them on this side with some white if we decide to. But other than that, there's a few dots around there. Little sort of hair follicles. And then we'll get the paint coming over. It's giving the eye time to dry. Nice. few spots around the nose there. While I've got this pointy brush, I do want to make sure that we're really quite dark around that eye as well. There we go. Back to the size 6 brush, same grey. We'll put the highlight in afterwards, don't worry. Leave a light bit. Damp brush. Soften it in a little bit. So you get that sort of, that slight highlight on the eye there. But we're going to do more with the highlight as we progress through the picture. Come back a little bit with the camera here. Try and get a few little flicks of texture. Little flicks. I've seen them in concert, little flicks. Little mix. Just bring it in. A few little tufts on the end of the ears. Nice. A little helps. I'll go a little bit darker down the back of there. So it almost melts into that sort of back of the hair there. But all in all, we're looking all right there. I want to make some of these whiskers a bit more prominent, I think. So I'm actually using this. I'm slightly more fiddly, but using a slightly bigger brush for doing some of the whiskers here. And let's get one. There like that. Again, there's just a few little sort of spots and dots around here. Beautiful. Looking very serious, this guy, isn't he? Very serious. Just want to go a little bit darker inside that eye. Pupil. We'll leave that to dry, and what we'll do at this stage, just soften in any hard lines that we're not happy with, literally just using water. I'm sort of leaning back and looking at the picture from a little bit of a distance here. I mean, this is the shadow side, so you can be quite dark down there. But I love the shadow in those ears. It really gives depth to it. So at this stage, I want to be getting some white paint. Now, I'm quite a fan of using white paint. What I want to do, though, is just literally squirt a little bit on this kitchen paper because I don't want much of it. A little bit of white there. This is my own brand of white. It's a lovely opaque one. It's a liquid white. It's just called, it's got a very interesting name. It's called Matthew Palmer's White. Can't go wrong with that, can you? A little bit of water is all you need for the white. Doesn't want too much because this is quite liquid. So here you could be using acrylic, watercolour, gouache, whatever. Just a bit of white, just to put a little bit of light into the picture. Just in a few places. Doesn't want much of it. We'll get close into the facial features of this animal. And what we're going to do is put some little white flicks here and there. So like around the, let me get closer in here because it's nice to see the detail. So just a little bit of white on the underneath of the nose there. Very, very fine little bit of white, just a little white flicks just on the edge of the the mouth there. Can you see it's making this more of a, it's giving it that little bit of spit and polish. I always think a bit of white. I shall be softening this white in a second if I need to. It really depends on you, and quite often a couple of coats of white paint is needed as well. Obviously we'll put the white in the eye, but we can't yet, it's a bit damp, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that. You could put some little flicks of white just here and there, just say a bit of light's catching it. Down that back there, look. See little flicks of white. It really does transform it. So I encourage people to use white paint. I'm quite a fan of the stuff myself. A little bit of white around the eye, the outside of the eye, that is. Makes it look nice and crisp. And a few little bits of white just sneaking down the side of the nose there. Just makes it look as though it's got that feature, that nice little distinctive feature that you'd expect to see. The highlight in the eye, of course, is always going to be of importance, and that's going to be about there. Makes such a difference. We'll get some little bits of white in the tear ducts as well. That white there really just totally changes it. Beautiful. Love the white. The whiskers as well we'll do in a second. I just want to put a bit of white down in the fur here. It's getting a bit dry, so a little bit of water with the white just to bring it back alive again. Put a few little flicks of white here and there. Love the white around that mouth. It just makes the whole thing pop forward. Put a bit down that edge there as well. If you're careful, you could even get some white highlights on the end of some of the whiskers. Just to break it up a little bit. See how it just makes those whiskers look a little bit more definite. Would you put white on these ones? Should, possibly, could, maybe. It depends how much you think you're going to be able to see them against your background. But certainly there's no harm in adding a little bit. Probably a few white spots around as well. Just around the snout there. Again, it's that white has just changed it, especially in the eye. Up to the old ears. We'll come back a little bit with the camera here. Up to the old ears. A little white there again, so we'll get a little bit more. I'll put some white in the ears, some light, which will be nice. A bit of white in the ears, can't go wrong. Little flicks. Little flicks. Make it look a little bit more furry. And even a bit of white just coming down from the top. Just help that slight transparency. Big difference that. Totally changed it. It's given life, it's given form, it's given shape to it. Just a little bit on the underneath of the mouth there. Totally transforms it, totally changes it. Especially around the mouth and eye, it just totally makes it look real. You know, it's got that sort of realism to it at that point, which is really what we're interested in doing, aren't we? Getting that realism to it. So let's just, I always like to sign a picture. I think it's always nice to do. So let's come back with the camera here. I think we're just about finished with that one. I'll pop that underneath there. We've created a lovely brown hare. And thank you for watching, and thank you for everybody at Search Press for helping organise this demonstration. And of course, thank you for taking time out of your day. Now, it's always left for me to say, let's get this hare mounted. Yes, I've been waiting to say that. There it is, the hare is mounted. There you go, and that makes a beautiful little watercolour picture. Thank you for watching. Appreciate your time.